You're listening to Popcorn and Politics. What's the real deal? Hosted by Audrey Bell Kearney and Derek J. Wilson. Asking the hard-hitting questions you want answers to. From political leaders and political hopefuls from around the world.
Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Popcorn and Politics. I'm your host, Audrey Bell Kearney, along with my co-host, Derek J. Wilson, and our guest today, Lisamarie Bristol. Hey, y'all, listen, I know it's Super Bowl Sunday, so I know y'all cooking chicken wings and all that good stuff, and we won't be long, but we got a great show for you today as well. I want to start out saying this. I want to first welcome Lisamarie to the show. Derek and I talk about this all the time. Our platform is really meant to educate and inform people about who's running for what office and what those people are doing in their office. So we don't ever want anybody to think that if they come to our show, they're going to be attacked, because they're not. So I want to thank you and welcome you to the show, because that's important. I want people to know that. Now, granted, Lisamarie, I got to tell you, we get some crazy people that hit us up. I ain't going to even lie. We don't even bring them on the show at all. We get some nuts. And so I just wanted to say that. But anyway, welcome to the show, Miss Bristol. You got a lot of accolades under your name, some achievements. Georgia State University, top 40 on the Fund 40. Charlotte High School Cluster Council chairperson, president of the Greater Atlanta Black Prosecutors Association, member of the Gwinnett Bar Association. You got a member of the Gwinnett Association Black Women Attorney Association. Just a lot behind your name. So we want to welcome you to the show. We know that we had a pretty explosive episode last week, and we want to give you the fair opportunity to come on here and share your views about what was said and share your platform about what you plan to bring to our voters in this upcoming election season. So welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for the invitation.
No problem. So we had a good show last week with Solicitor General Brian Whiteside, and that is the seat that you are running for. And he said some pretty explosive things. He kind of shocked both Derek and myself, and we were kind of sitting there going, oh boy. So we know that you, I don't like to mince words, and I know people want to watch the Super Bowl, so let's just go right into the episode. What were your thoughts about that, and what's your platform? What do you want people to know?
Well, what I want people to know is that they have a real option here. I'm a Democrat running for this office because the Solicitor General's office is a critical office for our community. And what people need to realize is a lot of times we spend all of our attention talking about the district attorney's office and felonies because those are sexier and those make the news. And, those are the things that we naturally gravitate to. And that's what TV shows are about. But what I do know in all my years of practicing as both a public defender and as a prosecutor on both sides at every level of the courts. So I've handled everything from traffic tickets to murder as both a public defender and as a prosecutor. Misdemeanors, so the Solicitor General's office is our real opportunity to actually impact our community and make a significant change. And it's a critical office that needs to be handled well and efficiently. And that is why I'm running. It's something that's often overlooked. Here in Georgia, we only get a solicitor's office if the county has a certain population amount. So most of the metro counties have a solicitor. Miss Paulding just got one. But it's important that people understand that misdemeanors have severe impacts on people's lives as well, not just felonies. And it's important that we're handling them with respect, that we're handling them efficiently, and that we're treating that office with the power and the regard that it deserves, because it does have a trajectory that could definitely derail somebody's life. At the same time, it could save lives. And so that's what I want to see brought back to that office.
So Solicitor General Whiteside said a lot of things and he had a lot of things that he had accomplished while he's been in that seat. And what do you see that's lacking? Because obviously you see something lacking for the simple fact that you decide to run against him. And I know people say, I'm not running against him. And people always say that, like, I'm not running against them. I'm like, what does that mean? But anyway, that's another story. What do you see needs to be done in that particular space? Because I looked at his record and it was pretty impressive, but obviously there's something you see missing. What is that?
Well, we'll be clear. I am running against him. It's just not personal, right? Mm-hmm. We're both Democrats, and I'm running because I think it's important that Gwinnett County is changing and we're seeing a shift towards more Democratic leadership. But it's important that we have strong democratic leadership in order to hold those spaces. And so I'm running because he's not doing the job that he was elected to do. And I'm not taking away that it's important, some of the accolades that he brags about. Yeah, we don't want Confederate statues in our communities. We don't want broken storefronts and garbage all over the place. I don't disagree with any of that. However, the constitutional role of the Solicitor General is to prosecute and handle misdemeanors in state court and recorder's court, to handle misdemeanors, traffic violations, and county ordinances. And for all the headlines and the lawsuits being filed and everything else happening, that job is not being done. And that's a problem. He's not working effectively with our bench. When you have conflict with both our recorder's court bench, and our state court bench, that means the critical work of serving the citizens is not being done. That means cases are not being moved, cases are not moving forward, victims are not getting the services they need. Defendants' cases are lagging and sitting in court, not being handled for 2, 3, sometimes 4 years at a time. And that's a problem. Criminal cases don't age well. The longer we let them sit, the harder it is to prosecute, the harder it is to bring things to justice. On the flip side, the longer we let cases sit and not do what we're supposed to do, that's victims not receiving resources, defendants not getting treatment and possibly rehabilitating themselves so they're not re-offending and committing greater crimes and therefore becoming felony convicted people later on. So we're just squandering a really great opportunity, not taking away that some of the things that he talks about are important to our community as a whole. But the question remains, are those the role of the Solicitor General or other people? And so, yes, I think the job that he was elected to do is not being done. Not working effectively with other community leaders is a problem. Filing lawsuits when you disagree with people and complaints and all that costing taxpayers money and resources is a problem, and it backlogs our system even more. We need to move forward. We need to find a way to operate in this new normal space. Every other metro county is doing so. It's time that Gwinnett catch up and do the same.
Uh, so, based on what you're saying about regarding the lawsuits, haven't he? I mean, like, didn't they majority? Because I haven't been following them, but I do know majority of the lawsuits actually came out successful. Does that have any? I mean, the courts say I guess guilty, innocent, whatever, or however lawsuits work. But if a lawsuit is in favor, does that necessarily make the person right, or you would disagree in that situation?
So I hear your
I
question.
probably worded it wrong. I'm not an attorney, so help me.
I hear your question, and I think what you're asking me is if the outcome justifies the means of how we got there.
All right. Okay.
And at the end of the day, we have limited resources within our county. The Solicitor General's office is an office of high volume cases. I believe at last count, the office handles about 50,000 cases a year. For every resource taken away from handling the job elected to do, for every resource taken away from serving the citizens in an efficient way and making sure that we are prepared to be in court and move those cases in an effective manner, is a harm to our community. It impedes justice to our community. And so I don't think the end justifies the mean in every way, because especially when we have strong leadership in other spots who are fighting the same fight. If there's a more effective way to do things, we can do that and all stay in our lane and do our jobs.
So, do you have any stats about some of the things you said that are lacking in the county? Like, are there any numbers that you can put out there for our viewers that are watching and listening right now that you say, okay, well, I see what she's saying.
Well, sure. Like, for one thing, I would say we haven't been having jury trials in state court, and I know COVID is terrible. I was in the middle of a felony murder trial when COVID came and happened, literally in the middle of a felony murder trial. And COVID has been devastating to our criminal justice system on every possible angle. But what we have seen is people coming together and rallying and trying to find innovative ways to still move forward. Unfortunately, people have not stopped committing crimes. People have not stopped being victims of crimes. People have not stopped needing help and resources. And so, what we need to do is still find a way to move forward, right? With that in mind, we haven't had jury trials in state court. It's been almost 2 years. And I would argue that our district attorney's office, who operates in the same building and has court access to the courtrooms the same size, has been able to operate. And they have, in fact, just recently talked about the fact that they have moved forward and they have been able to continue to conduct jury trials. And here's the thing. Superior Court requires 14 jurors, well, 12 to 14 jurors for a complex felony. You usually have at least 12 jurors, sometimes two additional, to make sure you have alternates. Then you're going to have all your witnesses, your officers, your counsel, all of those people coming into the courtroom to deal with it. And they have found a safe way to do so during this time. State court only requires a jury pool of 6 people, a panel jury of 6. They have the same size courtroom, usually a much simpler case, way less witnesses and victims coming into the court. So if Superior Court and if our district attorney's office has found a way to safely operate in the same square footage with 14 jurors, let's just say 12, let's say 12 jurors and move their cases along, we really have no reason why we can't do the same in state court with only 6. And that's just one example. We have a backlog of cases that have not been moving forward.
Is that because of not having court in person court? Is that the reason we have a backlog?
That shouldn't be a factor. In the solicitor's office, what you need in order to move a case forward, what you need in order to file an accusation is simply to walk down to the clerk's office and file an accusation. Our clerk of court has kept her office open this entire pandemic. Our clerk of court has kept her office open and serving our community this entire time in a safe manner. There's no need to impanel a grand jury as we need in Superior Court. You only need to do the work, file an accusation, and then we're ready to go. So to have a backlog, and the last information I received was it's in the thousands, doesn't really line up with the fact that the clerk's office is down the hall and it's open. So again, these cases are sitting. They're not being dealt with. And while these cases are sitting, our victims are not receiving all of the resources that they may need. A defendant may not be having their opportunity to get their day in court. It could be a good charge. It could be a bad charge. But either way, what we do know, and what I learned as a public defender, is a pending misdemeanor can have real dire impacts on somebody's life. It could impact your ability to join the military, job applications, housing applications, school loan applications. Like there's a lot of collateral damage that could come from a pending misdemeanor. So imagine you have a 19-year-old who's committed a nonviolent offense. They've made a youthful mistake or whatever have you. And now they're 22 and their case is still sitting. And it's not been accused. They've not been before the judge. They've not had a chance to answer for their case or say that they're not guilty or whatever it is. And now they're 22. How many opportunities are lost? How many chances have gone by them in this dead time? That's a problem. That harms our community at a much larger ripple effect than just right now. And that's something that needs to be addressed.
Why do you think there's a backlog though? Because that's a lot. You said in the thousands, that's a lot of people sitting and waiting. Why do you think that is?
I wish I knew, but I'm not in the office, so I can't speak to why that is.
Well, I know recently in January, which caused a whole lot of uproar between the office and the judges. But in January, solicitor stated that I want to say almost over half of his office was out either sick or in quarantine due to COVID. Um, Now we are in a pandemic. Um, I do know that at one point the courts were completely closed at the beginning of the pandemic, and then you know, that was in 2020, and then as I guess things got back to normal, um, it was open, but then you know, Delta, Omicron. Uh, if okay, let's put you in the office. Would you foresee that as being an issue per se? If you know the pandemic, because I know you stated that the clerk office never closed. Uh, I mean, but how would one can handle the? I guess if the staff isn't there, the staff isn't there. How does that work in the legal field?
Okay, so let's go back to what you asked me about at the beginning of the pandemic. When this pandemic first struck our country, I was a senior assistant district attorney in the Gwinnett District Attorney's Office. So I was working in GJAC and I was very familiar with what was going on within our own county in regards to how we were handling this pandemic and how we were moving forward. And what happened at the beginning of the pandemic, you're absolutely correct. Um, on that Friday, in the middle of my trial, we all went home. And we all went home thinking it was going to be 2 or 3 weeks and that we would be back. And what we quickly realized was we're not going to be back in 2 or 3 weeks in the same capacity that we thought. And so what I saw happening was senior staff, which I was not a part of, but senior staff, judges, administrator of court, magistrate court, everyone kind of coming together to figure out how are we going to figure something out? How are we going to pivot and move so we can find a way to move forward? And in those discussions, what I saw was a transition towards more technology. So we saw the use of more video court, we saw the use of more technology, and we saw more innovative ways to move cases forward. I personally, for one, I was able to go through my caseload and figure out what cases were kind of stagnant, what cases were people just sitting on, and what could we do to move our cases along so things did not just sit there forgotten while we dealt with this pandemic. Because absolutely, people's health and safety has to come first. You're completely correct. You cannot continue to do this work if people aren't well, both physically and mentally and emotionally. That took collaboration. And it took people coming together and making a concerted effort to work together and work through uncomfortableness to figure out a solution, right? And so now we speak to what's happening here now at the beginning of the year. And I think it's unfortunate that our judges don't get more credit. I've watched our Superior Court and our state court benches and our Recorder's Court benches working incredibly hard to do what they can to keep cases moving, to keep people coming before them, to handle bonds, to handle what they can to keep the wheels of justice turning. Now, you may not hear from our judges, but what people don't realize is judges are actually barred from speaking to the media about these matters. So while you might hear one side of a narrative and wonder, well, there's no retort, there's no other, I'm not hearing the other side, they can't respond. And so for those of us working behind the veil and seeing, we know that our judges are trying and they're having staggered calendars and they're having more court dates than they would normally have. And they're doing, a few people every 2 hours so that they can keep the numbers down. But they know that we have to keep moving forward. And that's the work our judges have continuously been doing throughout this pandemic. What happened in January is unfortunate. What I do know is safeguards have been put in place in many jurisdictions, whether it's virtual options or some kind of safeguards and background backups in order to ensure that if you need to transition to a virtual space, you're able to do so. And that just did not happen as far as I understand. Now, why that is the case, I can't speak to. But you asked me what I would do. What I'm prepared to do is sit at the table with the other county leadership, sit at the table with our benches, with our judges, and the other leadership and community stakeholders to make sure that we have these plans in place, to make sure that we're communicating and to make sure that everyone is on the same page so that if there comes a point where we have to pivot again, we're prepared to communicate in a way that we can do so effectively and not leave people stranded, coming in, missing work, paying for childcare, paying for transportation, and showing up at a courtroom and it not happening. That's real consequences for people in their lives. So people who are taking time off of work to come to court, victims who think that they're going to have a chance to address the judge, and they show up and there's nothing happening. That's a real consequence. That could be a real trauma to someone who thought they're finally going to have their moment, and now nothing. We have to do better to serve our citizens.
Yes, ma'am.
So, wow, you said a
Yeah.
lot, and thank you. Now I want to go ahead and address the big elephant that's in this room because I know you know it's coming. So let's go ahead and just put it on out there. So there was an article that came out stating that you felt that this position should be a nonpartisan position, and you stated that fact at a Republican breakfast. And so the Democratic world went nuts, and I'm sure you've probably heard a lot about it. So you want to let's talk about that. What was the statement? Because I heard that you said it was your statement was taken out of context. So what was the statement? Because I wasn't there. What was the statement? And I'm gonna let you go ahead and have the floor on that to explain what that meant and what happened.
Well, I didn't know there was an article, so that's news to me. I was privy to a picture of me and text messages floating around. So if it's been elevated to an article, this is the first time I'm hearing of it.
Well, maybe it
No.
wasn't an article. I thought it was an article. So, but to you, it was floating around to me too. So that's go ahead.
So the reality is I have a friend who invited me to a Black History program hosted by the Gwinnett Republican Party, and it was a breakfast. And I went to the Black History program. And while at the program, they invited every candidate who was present to stand up and introduce themselves to the room. It was a very large room. You said you weren't there. I wouldn't know for sure. There was a lot of people there.
I wasn't there.
And I took my 30 to 60 seconds and I said, I'm Lisamarie Bristol. I'm a Democrat. I'm running for Solicitor General. I introduced myself. I explained the position, and then I sat down. At no point, and I cannot stress this enough, at no point did I claim to be a conservative or a Republican or anything like that. At no point did I say I wanted to be tough on crime. And I absolutely did not say that I wanted this position to be nonpartisan. I know how important it is for our county to maintain strong Democratic leadership, and that's exactly what I'm working towards.
Thank you. There you have it,
Oh,
guys. Listen.
that's a direct response
Yeah.
to what solicitor stated on last week. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Also,
I really just wish that I had the wherewithal to have recorded the 30 to 60 seconds that I was speaking. If I just hit record on my phone, it would have cleared all of this up. But yes, I just cannot deny it strongly enough. Like it just never happened.
uh, well, if anybody have a video from that day, reach out to us. We'll be, you know, would love to help you set the record straight. Uh, you know, so moving on from that, um, so you said you used to work. So how long have you been in law, and then how long were you a um, working at the district attorney office here in Gwinnett County?
Okay, well, I can start at the beginning. I graduated from Georgia State College of Law, go Panthers, class of '09. I actually started my career on the other side. So I'm a little bit odd in that way, in that I started off as a public defender. I defended people, again, all types of crimes, from traffic stuff to very serious violent felonies. I did public defense work and indigent defense work for about 4 years. A big part of why I transitioned from public defense work to prosecution is I really saw firsthand how limiting it could be on the defense side. And I mean that in that no matter how reasonable my request was to the prosecution, I could go to the prosecutor and say, hey, my client accepts responsibility. They absolutely, admit guilt. However, there's this one condition that they just can't meet for whatever reason. If the prosecutor didn't care or disagreed or did not want to budge, I was kind of stuck. I could do a blind plea and risk getting worse from the judge, or I could, set my client up. I could let my client know what their options were. It's ultimately up to the client. But I hated the feeling of putting my client in a position where I'm setting them up to fail. Like, I already know that you're incapable, or that this is a hardship for you and that you're not going to be successful with this one thing. But yet here we are. And it got frustrating. And I realized how much power there was in the prosecution. And so I transitioned and I went to the DeKalb Solicitor General's office. In the DeKalb Solicitor General's office, I spent 4 years there, leaving there as a senior. Ultimately, when I left that office, I was in the Special Victims Unit. So I was handling a lot of the, high-risk crimes, domestic violence crimes, elder abuse, animal abuse, stalking, some of the more delicate ones. What I learned in the solicitor's office is a lot of times people come into court and a simple conversation can sometimes really put things back on track. Somebody may come into court and demand that they want a trial, and they're really frustrated and they're angry. And you look at their file and it's like a stop sign ticket. And you're like, well, tell me what happened. And when you have that conversation with them as a human, what you learn is sometimes they're just maybe mad at how they felt the officer spoke to them, or they might be mad that the car in front of them also rolled through the stop sign. How come that car didn't get the ticket? Or they might just be really concerned about the fine. And so what I was able to develop in the solicitor's office was an ability to speak to people and see them as much more than just the ticket or the police report, and have those conversations, and sometimes have really, really great outcomes. So there's room there to sometimes put people on track. There's a lot of opportunities for treatment programs. We had a robust diversion program and division in DeKalb, and youthful offenders were able to get on track, whether it was education, anger management, substance abuse. There's options there, because often the crimes that are being committed, while they still need to be held accountable, you could still have a bit of room in order to, treat and rehabilitate. I left the DeKalb Solicitor's office after 4 years to join the Gwinnett District Attorney's Office, because it was an opportunity for me to serve in my own community. My husband and I have 3 children. We are raising our children here in Gwinnett County. We have been here for, I think, 11 or 12 years now. We had been here for several years, and I'd never worked here. And I knew it was time for me to start serving in my own community and pouring into my own community. And so when the opportunity came for me to have that option, I took it. And I'm grateful for the years that I've spent in Gwinnett and all the people I've met. And it's been able to launch me into other roles and other leadership positions. I'm a proud member of the Leadership Gwinnett Class of 2022, which is a phenomenal program. I would highly recommend it to anyone who wants to apply. And yeah, it's just one of those things where I knew I needed to be more involved in my own community, where I was raising my family, where I go to church, and where I was seeing young people impacted. So I left the Gwinnett DA's office early last year because I wanted some space in order to run for this office.
Okay. How long were you at the Gwinnett District Attorney's Office?
3 years.
3 years. Okay. Okay.
So now the election is coming up,
Yes.
and what's your platform? What do you want people to know? What are you running for? What's your promise?
My promise is that I will work effectively with all of our community stakeholders. I may not always agree with them. In a county as large as Gwinnett, as large and diverse as we are, I can't imagine that all of our leadership is always going to agree. But what I promise is that I will always come to the table with an open mind. I will always sit down and do my very best to find some common ground to make sure that whatever outcome we come to is in the best interest of the entire county. That doesn't always mean everyone's going to be happy, as is the case. But that is something that I think is critically important in a county this big and this diverse, that everyone has a voice and that everyone can be respected and respectable at the table. I want to make sure that our diversion programs that we are robust and that we're tying in our community stakeholders. I want to make sure that we are tying into the resources that are already here and that we are building programs that actually address needs. And what I mean by that is I don't want to put somebody in a one size fits all diversion program and hope that it works.
Can you tell the people what diversion programs? What does that mean? Because I'm not
Sure.
sure everybody may know what that means.
So diversion is an alternative to prosecution. So someone who has little or no criminal history may be eligible for a diversion program, depending on the crime committed. Diversion would usually involve some months, some amount of supervision, where it's kind of like being on probation. Um, they may have to do community service. They may have to get their GED or enroll in school or show proof that they're looking for work or whatever the conditions may be. But in exchange for them staying on the straight and narrow and doing what they're supposed to do during that period of time, at the end of the program, they would be able to not have a conviction on their record. And I think that's really, really important because, again, what people don't realize is misdemeanors can stack. And so while people don't always think about misdemeanors as something they need to worry about, your first shoplifting, yeah, maybe you're not as concerned. You think, oh, it's just a misdemeanor. Well, that fourth shoplifting is a felony. That is a mandatory 1 year to serve in prison. And so people don't understand there are ramifications. So you can shoplift 3 times, 3 misdemeanors, but that fourth one could land you in prison for a year. So it's important that we're addressing issues at the outset, which is why I think diversion and intervention and education is so critical. And this is the best opportunity for us to do so at the Solicitor General's level.
So when I ran for office, I was asked uh, thousands of times, why now? You know, why did I decide to run at that time? Mine was easy. I was running against a rogue Republican. You know, I ran for County Commissioner District 3, which you live in District 3, so you probably know who that commissioner was. That so mine was easy. Um, Being a Democrat, um, when people ask you why now, the first time that a Democrat has ever held, well, not ever, the first time a Democrat has held this position in Lord knows how long, uh, and the first time that an African American has won a county-wide seat in the county. Uh, why now?
Well, I will tell you, it was not a flippant or an easy decision. As I said, I have spent a lot of time in this system. I am a career public servant, and I have seen up close and personal the impact of the criminal justice system. I've spent a lot of time speaking to our youth at my church and in different youth groups, and those who don't realize ignorance or just not knowing the consequences of their actions is not a defense, unfortunately, when they get before the judge. And it's important, it's critically important that this office is run well and that we are not forfeiting the opportunity to catch, treat, and help people not to come back into the system and to break the cycle. I'm running because what we need this office to do is not happening. I'm running because at some point you have to stop complaining about an issue not happening and step up and try and fix it. And so, yes, it is a historic win for my opponent. It's not a personal attack. It's about me wanting what's best for my community, what's best for my children, what's best for our neighbors' children. I'm trying to help build the strongest possible community for all of us. And so I'm running because I care. I'm running because it's an important office that needs to be well run in order to really curb some of the trends that we are seeing. It's alarming when I think about when we look across the metro area, crime is up 62.5%. Crime is up across the metro area. We are seeing a flagrant disregard for things. Young people are, not just young people, all people are doing things and not realizing sometimes the criminal implications. This is a really important time to use our tools and resources to educate, and to ensure that we are building wonderful little humans that will go out and become productive members of society. Running this campaign is a huge sacrifice to my family. I have 3 children. I have one in each school in my cluster, as I was telling you all before we came on air. So I have a high school freshman, a 6th grader in middle school, and a 3rd grader in elementary school. And my children are with me on this campaign trail. My daughter calls her campaign shirt her company shirt, and they are with me at most events. And they're with my husband and I. They are at the forefront of everything I do. And everything that I'm doing in front of them, and they are watching me. And that's critically important for me. I'm not going to do anything that they're going to be ashamed of. I'm not going to say anything that I don't want my children to be able to repeat. And so that's something I'm going to hold on to this entire time.
Whew. Well, this is gonna be a good one here, y'all. I don't know.
Yeah,
Y'all gonna have to go to the. That's gonna be tough. I'm sitting here saying to myself, "Ooh, this is gonna be tough."
yeah.
Thank you so much. This is
So,
gonna be tough. Go ahead.
just I guess are we wrapping it up, or we still have? I mean, we didn't get into our hot topics for today, so uh, but
We
I
got a
guess we'll
hot topic.
say
Go ahead and put it out there. We got listen. People trying to get chicken wings for the Super Bowl. We got a lot
right,
of a
right.
lot of people.
Well, you
Now
know,
here's the crazy part. We can kind of see who's watching Lisa Marie, and we got a lot of folks watching today. I'm like, whoa, look at the numbers. So, um,
yeah.
that's pretty
Well,
cool
just
though.
it's just as a Democrat, myself, and who have ran for office, and I was not the popular candidate amongst the party, and so by that I received a lot of pushback and a lot of questions. But like I say, my answers was a tad bit easier because I wasn't running against an incumbent Democrat. I was running against an incumbent that no one wanted, Republican, on both sides. And so so how will you answer when people state when the Republicans were in charge, why you never decided to run for solicitor then, or why after working at the district attorney office under what some would say one of the most divisive district attorneys that the county ever had over this course of it. When it come down to minorities, his track record towards minorities is questionable amongst the activists in the community. You know, where were you then when the young man got assaulted by the officer and the district attorney decide not to prosecute? Like, how do you answer those questions? Because those are the tough questions that are coming. If they haven't came your way, I apologize to be the first one to throw them at you, but I do know that you're running. uh, let me start back. I mean, so you used to work at a district attorney office as a Democrat who was a Republican, and then once a Democrat gets in office, you no longer works at the district attorney office, and then you decide to run against a Democrat solicitor, but never ran against the Republican district attorney or the Republican solicitor. Like, how would you answer those I ain't gonna say attacks, but those questions? Because I feel like those are legitimate questions, because you know now in Gwinnett County is an opportunity, or people feel like it's an opportunity that as Democrats, now that we have Democrats, in office, now we can step up and primary a Democrat to get in office. But where were you when it wasn't popular to be a Democrat in Gwinnett County? I guess that's the question.
Thank you for that question. And to that, I will say, to everything, there is a season, right? So here's a fun fact that not many people know. Well, anyone who went to law school knows about me. On my first day of law school, I was pregnant with my firstborn. On my last day of law school, I was pregnant with my secondborn. So I bookended law school. I spent my entirety of law school having babies and keeping them alive. When I finished law school and took the bar. I was pregnant 5.5 months along with my second son when I sat for the bar. And then I had my daughter. So there is a time to do everything. There's a time to learn. There's a time to grow. There's a time to gain experience. I've spent my time doing my service, and service doesn't look the same for everyone and in every capacity. So, yeah, you're right. Maybe I did not run at a time that I was not ready to run because it was not the right season for me. But what I did do was make sure I was teaching and training. And I'm very proud of the service that I've given. I'm part of a federal team that teaches across the country other prosecutors and law enforcement officers on elder abuse cases. We're funded under the Department of Justice, under the Office Against Violence Against Women, and built a curriculum. And that has contributed to who I am today, contributed to the prosecutor and the teacher that I am today. I'm an adjunct professor at Georgia State College of Law. A full circle moment, being able to go back to my alma mater and pour into the next generation of students. You need to be prepared when you step up. You need to be prepared to do the work. You need to have done the work in order to teach others to do the work. And I think that's critically important. I've done the work. I've had the trials. I've managed the people. I've taught the people. I've taught the officers and the other police officers, detectives across the country. I've done those things. I continue to do those things and continue to build my skills. And my service continues and will continue to grow. This was the right time for me to run for our county in the right way, in the right capacity to serve, because the issues that remain, the issues that are there that I pointed out at the beginning of this interview are still there. Those are still valid issues that need to be addressed that have not been addressed for the last 3+ years. These issues are things that aren't going away, that need to be addressed, that are harming our community and impeding our justice system every single day. And that's a problem. And I'm trying to do my part to fix that.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. So, how can people reach out to you to find more about how to support your campaign and your platform?
Well, my website is lisamariebristol.com, just my name.com. All of my contact information is on there. They can send me an email. They can sign up to volunteer. We have yard signs. We're working on our canvassing opportunities. If you want to volunteer with the campaign, please sign up. We'd love to have you. And most importantly, if you want to donate, every single dollar absolutely helps. Gwinnett is a very large county, and it's going to take money in order to reach everyone and do what I need to do in order to run a successful campaign. So that is what I am working towards, and I hope to hear from people, and I hope to earn their support as we move forward, because ultimately we're better together, and that's what I want to see us doing.
All right, guys, this show is streaming live on Facebook page, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and Roku. Also, American One Radio, we're streaming live. So I hope you enjoyed this interview. Lisamarie, thank you so much. At some point, we may want to get you and the Solicitor General on a friendly debate. If you're open to that, let me know, and I'll make it happen.
Okay, I am.
Okay, cool. So we will see if we make it
So
happen.
we have our first debate, huh?
Yeah, I was saying because I feel like I feel like it's gonna be a tough race, right? I'm listening to her talk. I listened to Solicitor General talk last week. This is gonna be a tough race, y'all. I had to recently vote in something, and I couldn't even cast a vote. I felt crazy because I really couldn't cast a vote. It was 3 good candidates, and I was like, oh God, this is horrible. I couldn't cast a vote. I feel like this is gonna be the same kind of fight, and so I would love to bring you guys back for a debate. I will let you know when that's going to happen. It'll be way before, well, probably after qualifying. It'll be after that time. So I'll get back to both you and Solicitor General Whiteside. But anyway, you want to support a campaign. This is where you can support. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, there's a link. If you're watching us on Facebook, the Noise Media Network page, there's a link. If you're watching us on Politics page, there's a link. Go ahead.
Are you still prosecuting?
I am. I'm a senior assistant district attorney in DeKalb County. I'm in the Crime Strategies and Community Partnerships Unit. So I have the pleasure of having a hybrid position. I work a lot of times out of the precincts directly. So I get to work directly with the detectives and the lieutenants and sergeants. And I get to work within the communities as well, looking at crime trends and seeing how things are moving throughout the community. It's a more proactive, data driven approach. It's really innovative. It's the first unit of our kind in the state, but we're doing amazing work in our unit, and I'm really proud of some of the initiatives we've been able to take on. And so I'm very happy to be doing that work for right now.
Okay. So you say you at DeKalb County now.
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
the DeKalb County District Attorney's Office.
If you wouldn't mind going into details, you don't have to if you don't like, but what caused you to leave the district attorney office in Gwinnett County?
Sure. Well, I am not naive, and I understand the relationship between the current district attorney and my opponent. And I didn't want there to be any friction or any, I just didn't need any confusion, right? And so when I decided I think this is what I wanted to do, I wanted to create a little space in order to make that decision of a clear mind. And so I turned in my notice and I left on great terms. And I went to the DeKalb District Attorney's Office. So I'm down the street. I'm still adjacent to Gwinnett County, and still doing the work as a prosecutor and loving every moment of it. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to continue to serve.
Okay. I was just reading your website and I didn't. I mean, because you said you was a professor, and I was like, oh, I didn't know if you were still, because it doesn't say if you were still at
I wear multiple
prosecutor. Yeah,
hats.
I
So
see. I see. I see. Mom,
yes.
educator, and prosecutor. Huh? Yeah.
Yes. Well,
So
the main one that's not written on the website, which probably should be, is professional chauffeur to my children, because that is the one that is most important, getting them to all of their different activities.
yeah.
My husband and I are trying very, very hard to make sure that we maintain some semblance of normalcy for our children throughout this period. They've been very gracious, they're very resilient, and they're wonderful children. But we're trying really hard to make sure that they still get to do their activities and that they still get to, participate in their extracurriculars. So yes, I am a senior assistant district attorney. I am an adjunct professor at Georgia State Law. I am running a countywide campaign for Solicitor General, and I am, a chauffeur extraordinaire. So I can do amazing things with a map. So there's that.
With the map. That's cool.
With a map, not a
You
GPS,
gotta,
a map.
you gotta block that out and figure out who has to go where at what time. I gotta make it work.
All right.
Well,
Well, thank you
we'd
so much.
love to have,
Yeah.
well, sorry, yeah, we'd love to
Go
have
ahead.
you and, I mean, well, first, yeah, like you said, thank you for being on the show. Uh, even, after what took place last week. So I do appreciate you still, coming on and being able to tell your story and have the voters listen, and so they can make an informed decision on who they would like to select as a solicitor in the county of Gwinnett. Also, I am just as excited as Arju with about the possibility of having both of you all back on for I don't even want to say a debate, a conversation, a town hall, to say where both parties are, both are able to respond to each other directly in a sensible and a professional manner. And so I am, both of you guys are attorneys. So, I guess Audrey and I can put on the robe and play the judge and and mediate something. But I am excited to be able to. That'll be the first time in popcorn and politics history. So that would be great.
Yeah, y'all need to get some popcorn too. This is gonna be a good one. So get you some popcorn. It's probably gonna be in the evening if Lisa Marie and Brian Whiteside's schedule permits, because I know evening
Allows.
times can be a little tricky. But if it is, we'll let you know exactly when it's gonna be once we solidify everything. But So, Lisa Marie, we started this show out Popcorn and Politics, and we have not eaten any popcorn on the show yet. So I
Yet.
know people are
Yeah.
trying to figure out how we got that name. It's a long story. Go back, find episode number 1. You can figure out how we got the name Popcorn and Politics. But anyway,
Uh,
thank you again so much. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad you did show up. I know that a lot of times people feel like they're going to be attacked. I don't attack folks. I just don't. I host podcasts for 5 days a week, y'all. Live. Catch me tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Good morning with Nat. That'd be me. 5 days a week I host podcasts, and I don't ever want anybody to feel that they're going to come to this show or any of my shows on my network and be attacked, because that's not the case. We want to make sure that we educate people on all the shows that I produce, and inform people so that they can make good choices and good decisions as they move forward. So again, thank you again for being our guest today, and we look forward to having you back again real soon, real soon, real soon.
yes, man. Now I do have one more important question
Derek J.
that
Fisher, if you
no,
don't stop,
no, I have one more
Go
question that
ahead.
we just cannot leave without asking. So who are you going for today? Are you going for the Cincinnati Bengals or are you going for the LA Rams? Choose wisely.
Okay. So I'll be honest. I often wonder what my life would be like if I cared about sports. I do. But here's my reality. I'm Canadian, right? Born and
Okay.
raised. And as much as I would love to say that I have a dog in this fight, you know what? I'm going to say Cincinnati because one of the young men playing for Cincinnati
Odell.
used to go to my church at Berean Christian Church, Gwinnett. So I believe he is a
Oh,
former cousin. Yes. So I have a former cousin. That's what we call each other at Berean. Our Berean members were all cousins. And I believe one of our cousins is a Cincinnati Bengal. So because he's
okay.
a cousin, don't ask me who he is. Don't ask me what he plays. But on that strength, because our Christian church, our family, our cousin family is that connected, I'm going to say Bengals.
The
Go-
Bengals.
I-
Okay. Y'all heard it first. Now playing. The
yeah.
Bengals. Yeah. Yeah,
We
so
had
I'm
that
looking
discussion in
forward.
our family. We had that discussion in our family chat, right? And nobody said a team. Everybody said, "Yeah, we just going with Odell Beckham." I'm like, "Well, which team does Odell play on?" I don't even know which team it is, because yeah, we just want him to win. I was like, "Okay, he's on a team, y'all. Which team? Which team is it? Like, it's not just Odell
Well,
by himself."
so me personally, I like Joe Burrow, but
Okay.
I have a 14-year-old that would be 15 next week. So actually, since we won't be airing before his birthday, I would like to give a happy birthday shout out to
Ah,
my oldest child, Michael Wilson, who turns 15 next week. So those praying folks, please continue to pray as we, and I say because you said you have a freshman, I have a freshman as well, as we travel through
woo,
these teenage years. Uh,
yes.
but
Ugh.
uh, but when everyone else was saying KC and the 49ers was going to the Super Bowl, he was saying it was going to be the Bengals and the Rams. He kept saying that, and so I'm gonna lean on him because I told him I should have listened to him when I was, filling out those forms. And so I'm gonna go with him. He says he thinks the Rams is gonna take it, but I personally like Joe Burrow. I mean, go from LSU. He won a Heisman. He won a national champion. He came into the league, got injured, and then the next season after the injury, he comes back and he's in the Super Bowl. So I mean, it's
It's
like,
impressive.
yeah, I love that. That's the underdog, and as Audrey can tell you, I love a good underdog. And being that I was one myself, so you know, I'm rooting for the Rams, but I'm quietly rooting for Burrow. So for me, whoever wins, I'm like you. I have no dog, no bone in this fight, but because I'm a Houston Texans fan, so yeah.
Well, I
Well,
hope
that
you both right enjoy the game. I will watch the game and enjoy that, but
Yeah, I like
just for
the commercials most. We sit here and still talk about commercials from years past, and I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl. I mean, halftime show. This is the first time you had a hip hop halftime show, so it
just
should
don't
be
forget to
interesting.
stretch first. We are people of a certain age, so it's okay.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. I might have to
that is
go,
true.
yeah, stretch because I'll be knocked out after halftime. Third quarter, I'll be knocked out. So,
Woo!
but
All
yeah,
right. Well, Is it safe for me to say goodbye now? I just
Well,
want
yeah,
to
I
know.
asked all my questions, all my tough
Okay.
questions. I just had to ask that. Say that one for last. I didn't want her to leave without putting that on the table. So
Okay.
Cincinnati, that's who she's rooting for. Who you? I mean, you never said who you was rooting for.
Odell Beckham.
Oh, okay. Whatever team that is, you know.
Whatever team that is, going with
It's
the
funny we
family.
got
Odell
three.
Beckham.
So we got three people who really. Well, I don't follow football. Period. You're
I
more high
follow
school and
football, but I
college.
kind of lost track. So after Kansas
Yeah.
City, because I was vote for Kansas City, like I'm like, yeah, and then they lost. So I kind of lost it after that. Like I don't know who's in there. So yeah,
I,
There
I
you
I
go.
really wanted Tom Brady to get another ring. I mean,
I
I wanted to
didn't.
see if he can go for 10.
I didn't. I didn't.
I mean, come on, you
Anyway,
can't hate
listen,
greatness.
don't hate me
But
because
yeah,
I said that. All right. All right. Yeah, listen. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, American One Radio, Jeremy, your team over there for streaming this live on American One Radio. Thank you again,
yes,
Lisa Marie. Derek J. Wilson, as always, thank you for co-hosting this thing with me. We'll be back again
thank
next Sunday, which is my birthday. I'm gonna be
you. With
working on my
Nicole
birthday,
Horn.
y'all. But I'm going to
Yes.
pop those right after I get finished talking to y'all. So it's okay.
Yeah.
Right at the Papados. Y'all meet me at Papados after the show. All right. I'll be back
Yeah.
again next Sunday. Same bat time, same bat plays. Y'all stay safe out there. Don't drink too much beer. Don't eat too many hot buffalo wings. And don't get mad if your team loses. Okay. All right. Thank you
Right.
again.
And you go to
Until
work
next
tomorrow.
time. Yeah, right. Until next time, everybody, make it a great day. Bye, y'all.
You've been listening to Popcorn in Politics. What's the real deal? Hosted by Audrey Bell Kearney and Derek J. Wilson. Be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your family and friends. To support the show, visit us on the web at www.popcorninpolitics.com. Connect with us on Facebook at Progressive Popcorn and on Instagram at Popcorn Politics Podcast.